Hi everyone, I'm Utkarsh, the author of The Seductive Illusion of Hard Work. Today is a very special day because I get to have a conversation with somebody who's obviously, be a friend or a mentor, but he's actually written, a blurb on the front page of the book. It's a chance for us to have a discussion on this topic of what is hard work and why is it so seductive from somebody who's had a distinguished career across countries and continents, and somebody who I'm proud to call a mentor, a friend, and a guide. I often turn to you, Sri, for all kinds of advice. So happy to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here, Utkarsh. Congratulations again on the book. It's no mean accomplishment. We're going to talk a little bit about this, on in this conversation. But congratulations on this accomplishment.
Thank you, Sri. Means a lot. So, let's just have a two-way dialogue about, what is hard work meant to you and why is it so seductive, your mental models for success, your career, so on and so forth. So, let's talk about essentially when you were thinking about, yourself as an 18-year-old, as a 20-year-old. Uh, could you have predicted that you will be a partner at Bain and Company living in San Francisco? What was the process of picking your career? What was it like for you? Walk us through the confusions of a 20-year-old, if at all there was any.
Utkarsh, it's funny. I had all the confusions as an 18-year-old, as a 20-year-old, as a 30-year-old. I don't think it stopped for a while. I wasn't sure as an 18-year-old what I wanted to. I wasn't doing very well, by the way. A lot of people assume that I might have had a stellar academic career, and I did not. I was actually doing fairly badly. When I was finishing school, I didn't do that well. When I was in college, and I was lost. It felt, looking back, there was this big cloud in my mind, and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. And I sort of meandered through life, I would say, for a long time. I enjoyed what I discovered was, I went to IIM Calcutta. I graduated from there, and then I discovered that I enjoyed working. To be very honest with you, and I put actually my heart and soul into it. I enjoyed many aspects of work, the intellectual challenge, getting things done. Uh, but I don't think I picked a path per se. I didn't say that I really wanted to be, let's say, in sales and marketing, or I wanted to be. The one thing I also had, uh, I would say, an affinity for was really to be in tech. It was seductive. That was the other seductive part of it, which is I wanted to be in the technology sector. So I ended up working for this company that no longer exists called DEC, or Digital Equipment, which at one point of time was the second largest computer manufacturer in the world after IBM. So I worked for them for a while. And that's really all I knew. And then I ended up, coming to the US, working here with digital, and then I ended up going to Wharton, and we can talk about that if you like. But and then I joined Bain, um, and I think Bain was the first place where I felt like I had some level of stability. I can't tell you when I joined Bain that I've been at Bain for 24 years, except for a time when I left to do a startup. But I can't tell you that when I joined Bain that I could have predicted I was going to be here for as long as I have. But there were many aspects of the job that I really liked. But I can also talk a little bit, during the conversation about why I left and also why I came back. Uh,
Yeah,
I'd like
that'll be
to.
super interesting to explore. But let's stay on the earlier part of your career.
Sure.
When you were, say, deciding between, your career paths and you were, interested in tech, what part of did somebody advise you into choosing X or Y? What was the thought process like?
Yeah, I have to tell you, I was pretty terrible at this. Gosh, looking back, there are some things I did really badly. One is that I didn't explore enough. And one of the things I tell my children is that they should explore, whether it's trying out new experiences, whether it's talking to people. I don't feel like I talk to enough people. I'll give you an example. So when I was applying to business schools in India, I wrote the common exam
The
for the
cat.
IIM, the CAT. I wrote the CAT at that time, and I got interview calls from. There were only three IIMs at the time. It was so far back. There were only three IIMs at the time. I got interview calls from all of them, but I also got before that I wrote an entrance exam for Jamnalal Bajaj in Bombay. I got an interview call from there, and I went for the interview. And I happened to be standing outside waiting to go into the interview room to talk to the director, this lady. And I saw that they had a class scheduled for different majors. And one of the majors was finance, the other was operations. And I had no clue that, when you go to a business school, that you actually have the different majors. And in fact, I remember going into the interview room and this lady asked me, "So, what do you think you want to major in?" And I just read on the notice board that there was a major for finance and operations. So I said, "Well, I think I want to do operations." I had no idea what an operations major was, and I didn't talk to enough people. I didn't really understand what this was all about. I didn't explore. And one of the things that I really tell people these days is spend the time to figure out what you might like and what you might not like. Even, take advantage of experiences that you can have today that I potentially didn't have. So I was clueless, to be honest with you.
Sri, one theme that I touch upon in the book, in the earlier parts of it, is the whole notion of pressure to conform
Yeah,
to something, to stability, to what's considered the right path. And
yeah,
do you think that has changed in India or other parts of the world? And now that you've lived in multiple parts of the world and interacted with
yeah.
people from around the world, do you think it's more of an Indian or a South Asian thing, feeling a pressure to, know what you want to do with your life early on, or it's all pervasive?
I think it is certainly it's much sharper in the South Asian community, especially in the Indian community. And you see it in the Indian diaspora around the world. You see it here in the Bay Area where I live. You have families who put a lot of pressure on their kids. They may say, well, we don't really put pressure on our kids, but that's not true. I think, the way they overschedule the kid, there's a lot of expectation around what the kids should do. But this is not to say, there's some kids who are naturally gifted, who are, who have the ability to deal with all of this and who are extremely talented. But I know of a lot of children over here, for example, and this is true for India as well, where it's very clear that what they're doing is to really conform to their parents' expectations. There's a great saying that I read once that the greatest threat to a childhood is the unlived life of the parent. And when you are a parent who has all these expectations of a child, and you're trying your child to do all these things, there is something that you end up missing out on. There's something about the childhood that this part about the exploration you just never do, right? How do you bring out from within what is it that the child really wants to do? But there's also societal pressure, there's economic pressure, right? People are concerned about job prospects, people are concerned about sustainability, economic sustainability. So I can understand a lot of this, but there's a lot of pressure.
There is, and it seems to exist like it existed when you were in your early 20s. It still exists.
Yeah,
Perhaps it's becoming a lot more competitive as well. But what I through the book I argue that if you want to really create a category of one for
yeah,
yourself, you need to essentially follow your curiosity. So
yeah,
a phrase that we hear often is like follow your passion. But
yeah,
I've always found that one, passions change over time, and
yeah,
second is that it's also fairly hard to figure out
yeah,
what's the one or two things that you're passionate about. What are
yeah,
your thoughts on this entire passion argument? What is passion to you, and like
yeah,
how is it manifested in your life?
yeah. That's a great question, Utkarsh. I hear a lot of people say what the advice that they give youngsters is, follow your passion. When I think back on my growing up years, it was not clear that I had a passion. And it's not clear that if I had really followed all the different things that I wanted to do, that it would have been the right thing for me. And I think, therefore, it's become a little bit of a cliche, which is to follow your passion. There are times when you need to wander a little bit and let your passion find you. And I think I'm a big believer in that. You just don't know if you're not open. You just don't know what might come your way. And so I think there are two categories of people. I know that there are kids, who at the age of 8 are very clear about what they want to do and, pursue the passion all the way through and become very successful. But I think there are a lot of people who, like me, for a very long time, I had this discussion with my daughter, who and I show this graph of my life. I'm very analytical this way, so I show this graph of my life, and I tell her there are points when, for a very long time, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I discovered that maybe consulting is something that I enjoy, I like. But even that took a while. It's not like I came into Bain and I said, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my
Hmm.
life. But over a period of time, I discovered there were many elements of this that I really like, and I felt like I could pursue. But what is your point of view? Tell us a little bit. Actually, I want to turn the tables over you, Utkarsh. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about your point of view on following your passion.
Shri, in that regards, I think your daughter and I have a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
Both Shri and I have multiple interests and multiple curiosities.
Mm-hmm.
And then you and I also have some things in common, right?
Mm-hmm.
Business school, interests in business, tech, all of that. And I have struggled to in my early 20s to figure out do they need to be exclusive? Do you
Mm-hmm.
need to pick a path in your early 20s? And the answer that I'm much clearer now, with the
Mm-hmm.
benefit of 5 7 years of experience, that it doesn't need to be exclusive so early, but you can
Mm-hmm.
perhaps look at your curiosities and then essentially let data guide the way. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
realize that say writing energizes you and it's not a
Mm-hmm.
one-off thing, it regularly energizes you,
Mm-hmm.
then the next micro experiment would be to actually start writing consistently and see whether you have any readers. The micro experiment after that would be,
Sure.
okay, perhaps can I publish a blog?
Yeah.
If that goes well, you basically need to up your stakes. But the realization that I had is that you don't need to know from the very beginning, as long as you're willing to conduct multiple micro experiments. So I think what has
Sure.
worked well for me,
Mm-hmm.
in just being comfortable with myself, is the fact that as long as I'm conducting micro experiments and learning from them, I'm okay. I don't need
Got it.
to be too successful too soon or prove a point to anybody but myself. That I'm making some progress, and then through writing, I've discovered that progress actually gives a lot of meaning and satisfaction, much more than arriving somewhere. The truth of the matter is that whether you're a partner at Bain, or an entrepreneur trying to figure things out and build something, you'll never arrive. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 like it's a series, and if you need to enjoy the process to go there. So I think that way, combining a bit of the analytical aspect of you and the curiosity of people like your daughter is something that I found quite rich comfort in.
And tell us, Utkarsh, so this point around micro experiments is great, right? Which is that you try something, see if you like it, see if you want to pursue it. But tell us a little bit about the book itself. Forget about writing a blog. You write a column every week for the Mint. I know uh, you blog regularly. But the thought of putting together a book just seems like extremely daunting. And did you know from the beginning that you were going to write a book? And did you say, okay, this is the path to my writing a book? How did you think about that?
So, Shri, some part of it is that I've seen my mother, right? My mother is a writer,
Okay.
and a professor. So I've actually, and like her father, my late Nana, was also a writer. Everybody in my family has been very interested in this craft. Actually, not too many people in my family are in the business space. Nobody is
Hmm.
actually, just my
Hmm.
brother and I. So writing was something that I always wanted to do. I
Hmm.
realized through my micro experiments that I was enjoying the process, and I was actually being able to communicate my point better every time. So I was able to
Hmm.
see progress in the writing,
Hmm.
and the enjoyment never ceased. It never became a task. So I
Hmm.
thought that the journey from, say, a tweet to a blog to an article, to a longer article to a book might be something that I enjoy, because at the same time, Sri, I was also thinking about what I want to do with network capital, right? Should it
Hmm.
be, a passion project, or should it be, something larger, something which is, a full-time engagement? So for that, I also wanted to see whether, my theory of work in the 21st century, how should young people think about their careers? At least my point of view, does it have an audience?
Hmm.
And book is something that is, that's a decent challenge if you can put it together, and then there is decent audience readership for it. Then perhaps what you have to say, you have one more data point that you're perhaps on the right track. So it was intentional that way. It was something that I also wanted to figure out, whether I had something that people wanted to listen. But there's also a role of people reaching out. So what happened was that the book was a result of multiple serendipities as well
Hmm.
as intentional steps.